Story 1 by Man in the Woods. It was late afternoon when my friend Mark and I decided to take a hike in the dense woods near our town. The sun was starting to dip below the horizon, and shadows stretched long between the trees. We were joking and laughing, completely unaware of the feeling that was creeping over the forest. I first noticed it when a snap of a twig echoed behind us. We both paused, but shrugged it off. "Probably just a deer," Mark said. It was late afternoon when my friend Mark and I decided to take a hike in the dense woods near our town. The sun was dipping lower, casting long, twisted shadows across the trail. Every tree seemed to stretch its branches like crooked fingers, reaching toward us. At first, it felt peaceful, almost serene. Birds chirped quietly, and the smell of damp leaves filled the air. We laughed and joked, our voices echoing off the trees. The kind of laughter that made you feel alive, unaware of anything lurking beyond the sunlight. But as we walked deeper, a faint unease started to creep over me. I couldn't explain it, just a feeling like the forest was watching us. The first thing I noticed was a snap. Twig breaking behind us. My head snapped around, but I saw nothing. Mark chuckled. "Probably just a deer," he said, shrugging. I tried to shake off the feeling. Maybe it was nothing. But why did my stomach twist in knots? We kept moving, but the sound returned. Louder this time. Closer. Someone or something was walking behind us, slowly, deliberately. Not like an animal. My heart began to race. "Did you hear that?" whispered. Mark's eyes widened. "Yeah," he muttered, trying to sound calm. Was it really just my imagination? Or was someone following us? We started to pick up the pace. Our footsteps crunched against dry leaves and loose dirt. The forest seemed to close in, shadows growing darker, thicker, like they were alive. Every rustle made me jump. Every wind gust sounded like whispering voices. Mark tried to laugh it off, but I could see it in his eyes. He was scared too. We were both tense, listening to the faint, deliberate steps that echoed behind us. Not running, just walking, slowly, watching. The light was fading fast. The sun barely pierced through the dense canopy above. Shadows pooled at the base of every tree. The forest suddenly felt enormous, suffocating, and we were tiny in comparison. I felt a chill crawl down my spine, even though it wasn't cold. Could someone actually be out here in these woods, this late? Or was the darkness playing tricks on us? We tried to convince ourselves it was nothing. Maybe another hiker, maybe a lost hunter, but every instinct screamed that this was different. The steps never faltered, never stopped, always behind us, always just out of sight. My breathing grew shallow. My pulse pounded in my ears. I felt like my heart was about to burst. Each sound, the crack of a branch, the rustle of leaves, felt magnified. Even the birds' distant calls seemed sharper, more urgent. Mark and I exchanged glances. Neither of us said a word. The silence between our whispers felt heavier than the forest itself. Something was wrong. Something was watching. I thought I saw a shadow move, just at the edge of my vision. I turned quickly. Nothing. The forest was empty, or at least it appeared empty. Was it a person or something else entirely? We decided to break into a run. Branches whipped against our arms and faces. Twigs cracked underfoot. Every step made the pounding behind us feel louder. The forest seemed to close in, twisting, turning, hiding whatever or whoever was there. The sound of those footsteps never stopped. Even as we ran, they matched our pace. Always behind us, always there. I felt the hairs on my neck stand on end. Was it gaining on us? Or were we just imagining it getting closer? We darted through a particularly thick patch of underbrush. My legs were burning, lungs screaming for air, but I didn't dare slow down. The steps behind us sounded heavier now, like they wanted us to hear them, like they wanted us to panic. Every rustle in the leaves, every snap of a twig, felt deliberate. There was intelligence in it. Something meant to hunt, meant to scare. I tripped over a root and fell forward. Pain shot through my leg, scrambled back up, heart hammering, hearing the steps slow for a moment. It's almost like whoever or whatever was behind us was toying with us. Could we even escape? Or were we trapped in these woods forever? Finally, we broke through the last line of trees, stumbling onto a dirt road. Our breaths came in ragged gasps. We looked back into the forest. Nothing. No figure, no shadow, no sound. Just trees swaying gently in the evening wind. But then I noticed something. A mark on one of the trees at the edge of the forest. It wasn't natural. Something was carved there. Strange symbol. Jagged, crude, almost like a warning. Below it, in the dirt, I saw footprints. Not ours, not human. And they led straight into the forest. Were we really being followed? Or had we imagined it all? Mark and I didn't speak as we got into the car. We didn't need to. The forest had changed us. Something was in there, something that didn't belong. And I knew, deep down, that it wasn't finished with us. Even now, sometimes, I wake up to the sound of footsteps outside my window. Just outside, watching, waiting. We decided to pick up the pace. The woods were thick, and the path barely visible. And then I saw him. A man, or something that looked like a man. He was tall, impossibly thin, and his face, I couldn't see it clearly, but it felt wrong. He didn't move like a human should. His movements were jerky, unnatural. And he was watching us. I felt my stomach drop. We tried calling out, but no sound came from my mouth. Suddenly, Mark whispered, "We need to run." And we did. We ran through the trees, branches slapping our faces, hearts pounding like drums. We decided to pick up the pace. The woods were thick, and the path barely visible. Every tree seemed to loom over us, their branches clawing at the fading sunlight. Shadows stretched long across the ground, twisting and moving in ways that didn't feel natural. The air was heavy with the smell of damp earth and decaying leaves. Then I saw him. A man, or something that looked like a man. He was standing between two trees, unnaturally still, tall, ridiculously thin. His presence made the air feel colder, like the warmth had been sucked out of the forest. I froze. My stomach dropped. There was something off about his face. I couldn't make out the details, but it felt wrong. Like looking at a mask carved to resemble a person, but failing. Mark stepped closer to me. "Do you see him?" he whispered. His voice trembled. I nodded, unable to speak. My throat felt tight, my mouth dry. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I couldn't move. Was he really watching us, or was it just my imagination? I tried to call out, "Hey," nothing. Not a word came out. My voice had vanished. I could feel panic rising in my chest, hot and suffocating. The figure didn't move. He just stared, his eyes were what I thought were eyes fixed on us. Then his movements began, jerky, erratic, wrong. He didn't walk like a human should. His limbs twisted at angles they shouldn't, jerking forward, then snapping back. It was like watching a puppet being pulled by invisible strings. Mark grabbed my arm. "We need to run," he whispered, urgency sharp in his voice. My heart was pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I nodded, and we bolted. Branches whipped across our faces, scratching and tearing at our clothes. The forest seemed to close in around us. Every snap of a twig behind us made my stomach leap. I could hear his steps now, but they weren't human. They thudded and scraped, fast and uneven. Could he even keep up with us, or was he toying with us? We ran blindly, barely noticing the uneven ground beneath our feet. Roots caught my shoes, and I stumbled, barely catching myself before I fell. Every sound, the snap of a branch, the rustle of leaves, felt amplified. Every shadow seemed alive. The figure stayed behind us, yet somehow always close. I could feel its presence pressing into my back. The cold air that followed it felt like a hand brushing my skin. Was he chasing us, or simply walking behind, watching us panic? I tripped again, this time falling hard. Pain shot through my leg. I scrambled up, tears stinging my eyes. Mark was ahead, glancing back with wide eyes. Okay? The fear in his face mirrored my own. We were running, but we were terrified we wouldn't make it out. Branches tore at my jacket, pulling at my backpack. The wind seemed to howl through the trees, carrying the sound of something breathing. Footsteps just behind us. I couldn't tell. My chest felt tight, my lungs screaming for air. Every few steps, I risked a glance behind. He was always there, watching, waiting. Not human. Definitely not human. My mind refused to comprehend it. Was this real? Or was the fear making me hallucinate? The forest path curved sharply, and I almost ran straight into a tree. Mark shouted, and I veered just in time. We could barely see where we were going. Darkness was swallowing the trees. The figure seemed to move faster now, or maybe our panic made it feel that way. Its jerky, unnatural gait cut through the fading light. I could see glimpses of its long, thin arms reaching toward us, but it never lunged. Not yet. My heart was in my throat. Each beat echoed in my ears like drums of warning. My legs felt like lead, yet I forced them forward. Branches scraped my arms. Leaves clawed at my face. Could it grab us if it wanted to? Was it just toying with us for fun? We ran through a narrow section of trees, branches snapping against us like whips. Every step I took seemed slower than the one before. Fear was dragging my mind down, clouding everything. Mark kept shouting, trying to guide us through. I could barely focus on him. Okay, the forest seemed endless. Every corner a trap, every shadow hiding that tall, thin figure. Okay, a twig snapped sharply to my right. I screamed. Mark grabbed me and pulled me forward. The figure didn't react. It simply lingered, waiting, watching. Why didn't it chase us directly? Was it enjoying the hunt? Finally, we reached a clearing. The moonlight fell faintly through the trees, and for a moment, I thought we were safe. My legs were shaking, my breathing ragged. But then I saw him again. He was standing at the edge of the clearing, closer than before. His movements were slower now, deliberate, like he was studying us. And then he smiled. Not a normal smile, a twisted, unnatural grin that froze my blood. Was this really a man, or something else entirely? Mark grabbed my hand. "Run," he yelled. We sprinted through the final stretch of trees, branches tearing at us, dirt kicking up under our feet. The forest seemed endless, yet somehow we were still moving. Behind us, I could hear that same strange, jerky gait. Close, closer than ever. And then it stopped, silent, just like that. We didn't look back, not once. Even now, I can't forget the sound of those feet, the feel of those eyes on us. And sometimes, in my dreams, I still hear them. Creeping, jerking, waiting. We finally broke out of the woods and stopped on the edge of the road, gasping for air. Mark looked back. There was nothing there. No man. No sign he had ever been in the woods. But as we caught our breath, I noticed something carved into the tree nearest the path, a crude symbol, almost like a warning. And below it, in the dirt, were footprints. Not human footprints. They didn't belong to Mark or me. We never went back to those woods, okay? And to this day, I sometimes wake up hearing footsteps just outside my window. We finally broke out of the woods and stumbled onto the edge of the road. My legs felt like jelly, barely able to keep me upright. Every breath came out in ragged gasps, like I had just escaped drowning. High, hands on my knees, trying to calm the pounding in my chest. The night air felt different out here, colder, sharper, but safer. Mark collapsed onto the dirt shoulder, clutching his side. He didn't speak. Neither of us did. Our silence said more than words could. We were both shaken, terrified, and struggling to process what had just happened. Mark eventually turned his head, eyes darting back toward the woods. His face was pale, almost ghostly in the moonlight. "It's gone," he whispered, his voice trembling. "There's nothing there." I forced myself to look back. The tree line loomed like a black wall, branches swaying gently in the evening breeze. He was right. There was no figure, no movement, just shadows, just silence. But was it really gone, or was it hiding just out of sight, waiting for us to let our guard down? I took a step closer to the woods, unable to shake the pull of curiosity. That's when I saw it, a tree standing just at the edge of the path. Its bark was rough, scarred, but carved into it was something I'd never seen before. A symbol, crude, uneven, deep. The mark didn't look natural. It looked purposeful, most like a warning left there by someone or something. My stomach twisted as I traced its shape with my eyes. A circle, broken down the middle, with jagged lines running through it. It felt ancient, wrong. Why was it there? Who carved it? Okay, and what did it mean? I swallowed hard and crouched down, noticing the dirt at the base of the tree. At first, it looked like ordinary footprints, pressed deep into the soil. But when I leaned closer, my chest tightened. They weren't human. The prints were longer, stretched unnaturally, with claw-like impressions at the tips. They dug into the earth, as if whatever left them was heavier than a man, yet not shaped like any animal I knew. The longer I stared, the more I felt sick. Could those really belong to the thing we saw? Or was there something even worse out here? I stepped back quickly, bumping into Mark. He glanced down at the prints, his eyes widening. Those aren't ours," he stammered. His voice cracked. He didn't need to say more. We both knew they didn't belong to us. The night air grew heavier, pressing against us like a weight. It was so quiet that I could hear my own heartbeat. Even the crickets had gone silent. I suddenly felt exposed, standing there at the tree line, like something was watching from the darkness. Was it behind the trees? Was it closer than we thought? Mark grabbed my arm. "We need to go," he said firmly. His grip was tight, his hand shaking. I nodded, but my eyes stayed locked on that tree. The carved symbol seemed to glow in the pale light of the moon, almost mocking me. We hurried back toward the car, not daring to look behind us again. Each step away from the woods felt like peeling something off my skin, like the forest didn't want to let us leave. The dirt road stretched out ahead, but it felt like miles. What if it followed us? What if it didn't want us to leave? Finally, we reached the car. My hands shook as I fumbled with the keys, dropping them once before finally unlocking the doors. Mark slammed his door shut with a force that made the entire vehicle shake. I got in and locked mine instantly. The engine roared to life, but before I could pull away, I glanced back one more time. The tree line was still, too still. That same tree stood at the edge of the path, the symbol glaring at me, carved deep like a scar. And for just a second, I thought I saw something behind it. A shadow, tall, thin, watching. Was it real? Or was my fear making me see things that weren't there? I floored the gas, the tires spinning against gravel before gripping the road. We sped away, neither of us speaking. The woods grew smaller in the rearview mirror, swallowed by distance and night. But the silence inside the car was deafening. Mark broke it, finally. "We never talk about this, ever." His voice was flat, drained of emotion. I just nodded, unable to respond, because deep down I knew talking about it wouldn't change anything. The symbol, the print, the figure, they weren't just in the woods. They were in my mind now, carved just as deeply as into that tree. Could something like that even stay contained to the forest? Or could it find its way to us, even miles away? I tried to sleep that night, but I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard it. Footsteps, slow, heavy, just outside my window. The sound of dirt shifting under claws. The faint scrape against the glass, like a reminder. I jolted awake more than once, drenched in sweat, heart racing. Every creak of the house made me flinch. Every gust of wind against the wall felt like fingers brushing the siding. Was it really outside? Or was my mind replaying everything over and over again? To this day, I don't know the answer. What I do know is that I've never gone back to those woods, not once, and I never will, because I don't think it ever left. I think it followed. And sometimes, in the silence of the night, when the world outside is still, I hear it again. Those same footsteps, waiting, watching, wanting. Story 2 by Shadow. In the hallway, I had just moved into a small apartment downtown. It was cheap, and honestly, I didn't care much about the building's old reputation. The landlord warned me once about noises at night, but I laughed it off. The first week was fine, but then the noises started. Soft thumps, like someone walking down the hallway outside my door. At first, I thought it was another tenant, but then I realized Taya lived alone. I had just moved into a small apartment downtown. The building was old, with peeling paint on the walls and creaky floors that echoed every step. The rent was cheap, and I needed somewhere fast, so I didn't ask too many questions. The landlord gave me a half smile when he handed me the keys, and said, almost as a joke, "Don't mind the noises at night." I laughed it off. The first week went by quietly enough. I unpacked, settled in, and got used to the sounds of the city outside my window. Sirens, car horns, and the occasional drunk shouting in the street. All of that felt normal. But soon, the noises inside the building began. It started with soft thumps, like footsteps. Slow, heavy, always in the hallway outside my apartment door. At first, I brushed it off, thinking maybe it was another tenant coming home late. But then I remembered something. The landlord had told me I was the only one living on this floor. My neighbors were all one floor up. The hall outside my door should have been empty, so who was walking outside my apartment at night? The thumps came almost every evening after that. Around the same time, I'd be sitting in bed, trying to read or scroll on my phone when I'd hear them. Step, 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 always slow, always dragging a little, like the person was tired or limping. Sometimes they stopped right at my door. I'd hold my breath, staring at the bottom crack of the door, waiting for a shadow to move past. But nothing ever did. Just silence. The kind of silence that made the hair on your arm stand up. Was someone out there? Or was I losing my mind? One night, I got brave. I grabbed the handle and yanked the door open mid-step. The hallway was empty, its flickering lights buzzing softly, and the smell of old wood. No one there. But the weird thing was, the footsteps didn't fade away like they should have. They just stopped, as if the moment I opened the door, whoever was walking vanished completely. How could footsteps just end like that? The next night, I set my phone to record audio while I tried to sleep. I placed it near the door, hoping to catch whatever was making the sounds. The next morning, I played it back. The recording started with my breathing, slow and steady as I slept. Then came the footsteps, as clear as day, slow, heavy. They stopped at my door and stayed there for nearly 5 minutes. But the worst part wasn't the steps. It was the sound after, a faint, steady breathing. Right outside my door was someone standing outside, watching me sleep. I barely get any rest after that. Every creak of the building made me jump. Every gust of wind against the windows sounded like a whisper. The hallway outside felt heavier, darker. Started avoiding it late at night. One evening, I had just gotten out of the shower when I noticed something strange. The bathroom mirror had fogged up, and in the corner of the glass, I swore I saw movement behind me, a shadow passing quickly. I spun around, but the bathroom was empty. Did I really see it? Or was the steam playing tricks on me? I tried convincing myself it was stress, moving to a new place, adjusting to the noises of an old building. That's all it was, but deep down, I knew better. Something about this apartment didn't feel right. One night, the footsteps came again, louder this time, closer. I froze, staring at the door, waiting. Then, slowly, I saw a shadow stretching under the crack. Long, thin. It didn't move. It just stayed there, like someone was standing perfectly still on the other side. Was someone out there? Or was it inside with me? I grabbed my phone and called the landlord, whispering about what was happening. He was quiet for a long time before finally saying, "Don't open the door when you hear it. Whatever you do, don't open it." And then he hung up. Why would he say that? What did he know that I didn't? That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in bed, staring at the door, waiting for the sound. Sure enough, around midnight, the footsteps came. Step, step, step. Then silence. And then not. It wasn't loud, just 3 slow knocks, as if testing me. Do you know how hard it is to sit still when something is knocking on your door in the middle of the night? I didn't open it. I didn't move. I just sat frozen, barely breathing. The shadow stretched again across the floor. Then, just like before, it disappeared. The hallway fell silent. The next morning, I checked the peephole. The hallway was empty, but taped to the outside of my door was a piece of paper. On it were the words, "I saw you too." Who left that note? And how long had they been watching me? I don't think I'm alone in this apartment. I don't think I ever was. Now, I'm terrified to find out what's waiting for me in that hallway when the lights go out again. One night, I woke up to a cold draft. I saw it from the corner of my eye, a shadow moving slowly across the hallway. I froze. My heart was pounding, every nerve screaming. The shadow didn't look like a person. It stretched unnaturally, and it seemed to drift rather than walk. I grabbed my phone, but the light barely touched it. The shadow was still there, watching me. I woke up in the middle of the night to a cold draft brushing against my skin. My window was closed. My door was shut. But I felt the air move, as if something had just slipped past me. The room was silent, but my heart was already beating harder than it should have. I sat up slowly, staring toward the hallway. From the corner of my eye, I saw it. A shadow, darker than the rest, moving across the hallway outside my room. It wasn't fast. It wasn't jerky. It just glided. Smooth, silent, unnatural. Every muscle in my body froze. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't blink. What would you do if you saw something like that in your hallway at night? The shadow didn't look like a person. Stretched long, bending in ways that didn't make sense with the hallway light. The bulb above flickered once, twice. Each time, the shape seemed to shift, like it was alive. I reached for my phone on the nightstand, but even the faint glow of the screen barely touched it. The shadow lingered. It wasn't just passing through. It was watching me. I could feel its focus, pressing down on me, like cold hands wrapped around my chest. My breathing got louder in the silence. Too loud. I was terrified it would hear me. Was it waiting for me to move? I tried convincing myself it was a trick. Maybe the tree outside the window, or the headlights of a car passing by. But the hallway light was steady now, in the shadow. It hadn't left. It hovered there, stretched against the floor, reaching toward my door. The floor creaked, just once. Not in my room, not behind me, but right there in the hallway where the shadow was standing. My skin crawled, every hair on my body rising. The sound was too real, too close. How could a shadow make noise? I gripped my phone tighter and flicked the flashlight on. The beam cut across the doorway, but it didn't chase the shape away. The shadow was still there, standing tall, distorted against the walls. Only now, it seemed to move closer. The air got colder. My chest felt heavier. The hallway stretched in front of me like a tunnel, but the shadow filled it, blocking everything else. It wasn't just a shape. It was thick, dense, solid. My body screamed at me to run, but my legs wouldn't move. Was I staring at something real, or was I staring at nothing at all? Okay? The shadow leaned forward. I swear it did. Its edges crawled across the crack at the bottom of my door, spilling into my room. My lamp flickered, dimmed, and then went completely black. The only light left was the tiny glow of my phone. My hand shook so badly. The beam swayed across the walls like I was underwater. I heard breathing, not mine, low, steady, right on the other side of the door. The shadow paused with each exhale, like it was alive, waiting, listening. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. Was it trying to get in? Minutes passed, or maybe it was seconds. The kind didn't feel real anymore. I could hear my heartbeat echoing in my ears, louder than the silence around me. Then, without warning, there was a soft knock at my door. 3 slow taps. My stomach dropped. Who knocks in complete silence at 3 in the morning? I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just sat there, staring at the door, praying that whatever was out there would leave. But then the shadow began to shift again, taller, longer, stretching up the doorframe until it almost touched the ceiling. My flashlight dimmed, as if the darkness was swallowing it whole. I wanted to scream, but the sound wouldn't come out. The knocks came again, louder this time, more impatient. Then silence. The shadow shrank back to the floor, crawling like liquid across the hallway. It didn't leave, slid, moving slow, dragging until it disappeared into the far corner of the hallway where the light didn't reach. Did it really leave, or was it waiting where I couldn't see it? I sat awake until morning, gripping my phone, staring at the door, waiting for it to return. The moment sunlight finally spilled through the curtains, I jumped up and yanked the door open. The hallway was empty, too empty. The air smelled stale, like something old had been lingering there all night. But on the floor, right in front of my door, was a mark. A long, black smear, like a burn, stretching from one side of the hallway to the other. My hand shook as I reached down to touch it. The wood was cold, ice cold. What left that behind? That night, I stayed at a friend's place. I didn't tell them everything. I just said I wasn't feeling safe at home. But deep inside, I knew I couldn't stay away forever. The things were still there. My bed, my clothes, my life, and that shadow, whatever it was. It was waiting for me. When I finally went back, everything looked normal again. The burn mark on the floor was gone, like it had never been there. The hallway lights were steady. My room was quiet. Almost too quiet. Was it just in my head? I tried sleeping again that night, but every creak in the walls made me tense. Every gust of wind made me think the shadow was back. And, right around midnight, I felt it. It's that cold draft against my skin, the same one that had woken me up before. I turned my head slowly toward the hallway, and there it was. The shadow was back. Only this time, it wasn't in the hallway. It was inside my room. I tried leaving the apartment the next morning, but as I opened the door, I saw it, sitting at the end of the hallway, not moving, just waiting. I never stayed another night, left everything behind. But even now, sometimes I dream of that hallway, and in my dreams, I can still feel that cold presence waiting, just out of reach. I tried leaving the apartment the next morning. My bag was already packed. My hand shook as I pulled on my jacket. The air inside the unit felt heavy, like it had soaked up something unnatural. My body was screaming at me to get out, but my mind hesitated. Leaving meant admitting something had been there. Leaving meant I believed it. Still, I reached for the doorknob. The cold metal stung my palm. The hinges groaned as the door creaked open. At first, all I saw was the same bland hallway I had walked through 100 times before. Beige walls, dim ceiling lights. The old carpet with stains no one ever cleaned. But then my eyes drifted to the end of the hall, and I froze where I stood. Something was sitting there, perfectly still, perfectly silent. Its shape barely visible, but I knew it was there. Was it really there? Or was my mind filling in the shadows? The thing wasn't moving. It wasn't swaying like a person who was breathing. It wasn't fidgeting like a neighbor waiting for someone. It just sat there, black, still, watching. Even from that distance, I felt its attention locked on me. I couldn't see eyes, but I didn't need to. My stomach twisted the way it does when you know someone is staring straight into you. I stood frozen in the doorway, gripping the handle so tight my knuckles ached. The hallway was dead silent, but the longer I stared, the louder my heartbeat became. I could hear it pounding in my ears, drowning everything else out. The thing at the end of the hall didn't shift, didn't speak, didn't even breathe. It just existed there, like it was waiting for me. What exactly was it waiting for? I thought about calling out, asking if someone was there, but my throat wouldn't make a sound. So the idea of drawing its attention felt wrong, like speaking would be an invitation. My phone was in my pocket. I thought about grabbing it, snapping a picture, but my hand wouldn't move. Every muscle in my body screamed that the second I looked away, it would get closer. So the dim lights above flickered once, buzzing faintly before returning to normal. My eyes darted back to the figure. For the briefest second, I thought I saw it shift. Not closer, not further, sharper, like the darkness had grown more defined. My breath caught in my throat. I slowly pulled the door shut again, leaving only a crack to peek through. Had it followed the movement? Could it even see me from here? I waited there, barely breathing, eyes glued to that dark shape. Minutes felt like hours. The hallway remained still. The figure never left. I tried convincing myself it was nothing, a shadow, a trick of the light. But the draft in the hallway said otherwise. I could feel the cold leaking in through that small crack in the door, brushing over my skin like icy fingers. Finally, I backed away. I let the door shut, sealing me inside. My body trembled uncontrollably, and I slid down against the wall. My chest rose and fell with sharp breaths. I didn't know if I could last another night here. The thought of sleeping while that thing lingered outside was unbearable. Would it wait all night? Would it still be there in the morning? I didn't sleep at all. I just sat on the floor with my bag beside me, gripping my phone like a weapon. Every creak in the walls made me flinch. Every shadow in the corner made me shiver. By the time the first light of dawn seeped through the curtains, my decision was made. I was leaving. I didn't care if I had to abandon everything. I wasn't staying another night in that apartment. When the sun rose high enough, I grabbed my keys. My bag was still packed. I opened the door again, the hinges crying out in protest. My heart raced as my eyes shot to the end of the hallway. It was gone. The spot where it had been was empty now. Relief washed over me, but it didn't last, 'cause deep down, I knew things like that don't just leave. Had it moved? Or was it hiding now? I didn't wait to find out. I hurried down the hall, nearly tripping over my own feet. My ears strained for any sound behind me. The air felt thick, heavy. The silence seemed to follow me. By the time I reached the stairwell, sweat was dripping down my back despite the cold air. I didn't look back, not once. I just ran. I never spent another night there. I left everything behind. Clothes, furniture, even personal things I should have cared about. None of it mattered anymore. The only thing I cared about was never seeing that hallway again. But even as I drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't finished with me. How do you really escape something that isn't human? It's been years now, but I still dream about that hallway. See myself opening the door. I see myself staring down that dim, narrow stretch of carpet. And at the end, the same figure sits, silent, waiting. My heart always pounds the same way it did that morning. My breath catches, my body freezes, and I wake up in a cold sweat. But sometimes, when I wake, I swear I still feel it. That draft, that icy presence pressing against my skin, even though I'm in a different place, a different bed, a different life. That presence finds me in the dark, and when I do finally gather the courage to open my eyes, I always look toward the doorway, 'cause one day I know I won't just dream about it. One day I'll open my eyes, and it'll be sitting there again, waiting. Story 3, by phone call at midnight. It was midnight when my phone rang. I rarely get calls that late, and I answered with a groggy hello. Nothing, just breathing, heavy, labored breathing. I hung up. Then it rang again. Same thing. It was exactly midnight when my phone rang. I rarely get calls that late, and the sound cut through the silence of my room like a siren. My heart jumped before I even picked it up. The screen glowed in the dark, and I squinted at it. No name, no number. It's unknown caller. For some reason, that felt worse than if it had shown a number. Against my better judgment, I answered with a groggy hello. At first, there was nothing, just silence. I almost thought the call had dropped. Then, faintly, I heard it. Breathing. Deep, slow, labored breathing. It didn't sound like normal background noise on a call, okay? It sounded intentional, like the phone was pressed against someone's mouth, and they were letting me hear every exhale. My skin prickled. I whispered, "Who is this?" But there was no reply, just breathing. Would you have stayed on the line? Or would you have hung up right away? I ended the call, my hand trembling as I set the phone back on my nightstand. I told myself it was probably some kind of glitch or prank. But no sooner had I set it down than the screen lit up again. It's the same unknown caller. I froze, staring at it. Something inside me said not to answer, but I pressed the green button anyway. The same breathing filled my ear, louder this time, more ragged, almost wheezing. I felt every hair on my neck rise as I sat there in the glow of my lamp, listening. Whoever it was didn't say a word. I couldn't bring myself to speak either. I just listened to the heavy inhale, the shaky exhale, over and over, until finally I whispered, "What do you want?" The breathing stopped. Was he listening to me? Or was he standing somewhere close by? I hung up again, harder this time, and shoved the phone under my pillow. I couldn't stand looking at it anymore. I turned off my lamp, rolled onto my side, and tried to convince myself it was nothing, just a stupid prank. Maybe kids using some app to hide their number, but deep down, I didn't believe that. Minutes passed. My eyes started to close. Okay, and then the buzzing came again. The vibration against my pillow made me jump. Okay, I pulled it out, and sure enough, unknown caller. My chest tightened. I wanted to throw the phone across the room. Instead, I answered again. Why couldn't I stop myself from answering? Didn't say anything this time. I just listened. The line was quiet at first. No breathing, no noise, just static, faint and low. I started to think maybe it was done. But then, slowly, the breathing returned, softer now, closer, like the person was right against the receiver. Then a sound slipped through the line that made my stomach drop, a whisper, too low to make out. What did he just say? I pulled the phone from my ear, staring at it in the darkness. My hands were slick with sweat. I didn't want to put it back to my ear, but I had to. I pressed it back and listened hard. The breathing was gone. Instead, there was a faint scratching sound, like fingernails dragging across the microphone. Kind of sound that makes your teeth ache. Was he doing that on purpose? Okay. Or was it something else I was hearing? I hung up, and this time powered the phone off completely. I threw it onto the dresser across the room. I laid there in the dark, my chest heaving, listening to the silence. Finally, I started to calm down. No more buzzing, no more breathing. Closed my eyes. Sleep started to take me. That's when I heard it. My phone rang again, but it was off. I knew I had shut it down. I sat up in bed, staring at the dresser. The phone screen glowed, buzzing against the wood. The words, unknown caller, lit up in the darkness. My blood turned cold. I didn't touch it. I just sat there and let it ring. After a long 30 seconds, it stopped. My ears rang with silence. How was that even possible? I didn't sleep at all after that. I kept the lamp on, sitting upright until morning. When the sun finally rose, I checked my phone. The call log showed 3 missed calls, all from unknown, but the times weren't right. One of them said 3:17 a.m. Another said 4:02. I hadn't heard those, so thought that I might have been sleeping through some of the calls made my stomach turn. What if he had said something while I was asleep? For the rest of the day, I tried to shake it off. I told myself not to overthink. Phones glitch. People prank. It's nothing. But deep down, I couldn't let it go. Every time my phone buzzed with a normal notification, my chest tightened. Couldn't stop thinking about the breathing. Okay? That whisper I couldn't make out. The scratching sound. That night, I decided I'd put the phone in another room so it wouldn't bother me. I set it on the kitchen counter, powered off, and went to bed. I left the bedroom door cracked, just enough for light to spill through. I felt safer knowing it was far away from me. I tried to convince myself I'd sleep better, but just past midnight, I woke up. I wasn't sure what had pulled me out of sleep at first. Then I heard it. The faint vibration of my phone buzzing on the kitchen counter. I froze. I had turned it off again before bed, but it was ringing. My chest tightened as I lay there in the dark, staring at my cracked door. The sound kept going, a low, mechanical buzz. Then it stopped. Was he calling from inside the building? I sat up slowly, every nerve in my body on fire. I could still see the faint glow from the kitchen, high phone screen lighting up. Curiosity clawed at me. Against every instinct, I climbed out of bed and padded into the hallway. The silence was unbearable. Each step I took, the floor creaked louder than it should have. Finally, I reached the kitchen. The phone sat on the counter, screen lit, unknown caller. I didn't touch it. I just stared at it, my pulse hammering, and then the phone answered itself. The screen shifted, and the call timer started counting. My breath caught in my throat. The phone pressed against the counter. No one holding it, no one near it. But in the silence of my apartment, I heard it again, breathing. Only this time, it wasn't coming from the phone. It was coming from right behind me. By the 4th call, I answered, heart racing. It's time, a voice whispered. I'm inside. I froze. I live alone. The windows were locked, doors bolted. I laughed nervously and hung up. But then, I heard it. Footsteps upstairs. Slow, deliberate. The kind of steps someone makes when they don't want to be heard, but they want to scare Yubby. The 4th call. I answered, heart racing. The phone felt heavy in my hand. My throat was dry as I pressed it to my ear. For a moment, there was silence, and I thought it might just be breathing again. But then, a voice whispered 2 words that froze every muscle in my body. I'm inside. I couldn't move. My eyes darted around the room. The curtains were drawn, the windows locked, and the front door bolted. I lived alone. No one could possibly be inside. My pulse thudded so loudly in my ears, I almost missed the faint click of the line going dead. Could someone really be in the house with me? Or was this just the cruelest kind of prank? I told myself it had to be a joke. Maybe some app, some sick kid trying to scare strangers. Okay? Forced out a shaky laugh and dropped the phone onto the nightstand. But as soon as the sound left my throat, I regretted it because I heard something upstairs. It wasn't loud. It's just a single creak. It's the kind of sound old floorboards make when weight shifts across them. My bedroom was on the 1st floor. Above me was the guest room I rarely used. My eyes shot to the ceiling. The sound came again, slow, deliberate. A step, then another. Was it my imagination, or was someone really walking upstairs? I held my breath, straining my ears. The footsteps stopped. The silence was so complete, it almost rang. I sat there, frozen, clutching my blanket like it would protect me. Then came another step, softer but real. I knew that sound. Someone was up there, trying not to be heard. My first instinct was to grab something for protection. I reached under my bed and pulled out the old aluminum baseball bat I kept for emergencies. My hand shook as I wrapped my fingers around the handle. The footsteps moved again, this time toward the top of the staircase. Was he coming down, or just standing there waiting for me? I didn't want to move. My body screamed at me to stay put, but at the same time, sitting still felt worse. My phone lit up again on the nightstand. Unknown caller. My stomach dropped. I stared at it as it buzzed. I didn't pick it up this time, but the sound filled the room. Finally, I swiped it. My voice cracked as I whispered, "Hello." The line was quiet. For a long moment, I thought maybe no one was there. Then, faintly, I heard it. That same labored breathing. Only now, it wasn't in sync with the footsteps. Because while I heard breathing through the phone, I also heard the soft groan of the stairs inside my house. How could he be in two places at once? I ended the call and dropped the phone. My body shook as I tried to think. Should I run outside? Should I lock myself in the bathroom? Every option felt wrong. My eyes flicked to the doorway, expecting to see a shadow any second. I gripped the bat tighter. Okay. Then came the sound I was dreading. A slow step on the staircase. Then another. The boards groaned under the weight of someone descending. I couldn't breathe. My heart hammered against my ribs, begging me to run. The footsteps stopped halfway down. Silence again. Was he standing there, watching me from the shadows of the stairs? I edged closer to my bedroom door, moving as quietly as I could, pressed my ear against it. Nothing. Just the silence of the house. Debated calling the police, but what would I even say? Someone might be in my house. Tia, they wouldn't take it seriously. The phone buzzed again behind me. I turned in time to see it light up. The same words. Unknown caller. Against all reason. I answered again, whispering into the receiver. This time, there was no breathing, no whisper, just a faint scratching sound, like fingernails dragging along a wall. My eyes widened as I realized the sound wasn't only in my ear. It was also coming from the hallway. I dropped the phone and stumbled back. The scratching continued, closer now, slow and deliberate. It moved along the wall, just outside my room. The noise vibrated through the plaster. My skin crawled. My grip on the bat tightened until my knuckles ached. Should I fling the door open and confront it? Or wait for it to make the first move? The scratching stopped. Silence swallowed the house. I stood there, frozen in the middle of my room. Then, from directly behind the door, a whisper seeped through the wood. I couldn't make out the words, but the voice was low, raspy, and too close. My knees nearly gave out. Suddenly, my phone rang again, shrill and piercing. The sound made me jump. I lunged for it, not to answer, but to silence it. When I picked it up, I saw something that made my stomach twist. The caller ID didn't say unknown anymore. It displayed my own number. How could I be calling myself? I let the phone fall to the floor. The moment it hit the ground, the doorknob rattled. Not violently, slowly. Someone was testing it, trying to see if it would open. I ran to it and twisted the lock as hard as I could, my whole body shaking. The rattling stopped. Then came the silence again. I pressed my ear to the door. For a few seconds, I heard nothing. Then, without warning, the sound of running footsteps thundered down the hall, away from my room. My heart pounded as I realized he was moving toward the back of the house, toward the kitchen. Was he leaving, or was he waiting for me to follow? I grabbed the phone and dialed 911 with trembling fingers. The operator answered, calm and steady, while I stammered out my address. She told me to stay on the line, stay in the room, and wait for officers. I tried to do as she said, clutching the bat, eyes locked on the door. Minutes crawled by. Every creak of the house made me flinch. Finally, I heard the distant wail of sirens approaching. Relief washed over me. I felt tears prick my eyes as I whispered into the phone that help was close. Then I heard it again. The whisper. It was right behind me this time. Not through the door, not through the phone. Directly behind me. I grabbed a baseball bat and ran upstairs. Nothing. Just my apartment. Quiet as ever. I called the police. They came and searched everything. No signs of entry. Nothing. That night, as I lay in bed, my phone rang one last time. The screen was blank, but the whisper was clear. See you soon. I gripped the bat so tightly, my palms began to sweat. My knuckles turned white as I crept up the stairs, one slow step at a time. Each creak of the wood beneath my feet echoed through the apartment like a warning. My ears strained for any sound, any movement above me. But when I reached the top, it was still, too still. The hallway stretched out in front of me, dimly lit by the weak glow of a nightlight. My bedroom door was open as I had left it. The guest room door was shut tight. I nudged it open with the tip of the bat, my heart hammering. The hinges squealed softly, and I winced, but the room was empty, dusty, quiet. Was I imagining things? Or had someone been there just seconds before? I checked every corner under the bed, even inside the closet. Nothing, just shadows and the stale smell of a room rarely used. I moved to the bathroom next. Empty again. Each turn of the knob, each door I pushed open, revealed the same thing. Silence. My apartment, quiet as ever. But that silence didn't feel safe. It felt heavy. Like something was holding its breath, waiting for me to let my guard down. I tightened my grip on the bat and forced myself to walk back downstairs. My eyes scanned the living room, the kitchen, the windows. Everything looked untouched. If no one was here, then who made the call? My phone sat on the coffee table where I'd left it. The screen was dark, but it felt like it was watching me. I grabbed it, my thumb hovering over 911. For a moment, I hesitated. Would they even believe me? A voice whispering through the phone wasn't exactly hard evidence. But then I thought about the sound of those footsteps. I pressed the numbers anyway. The line connected, and the operator's calm voice filled my ear. I told her everything in a rushed whisper. The calls, the whispers, the noise upstairs. She stayed calm, telling me officers were on the way. I was told to wait inside and not touch anything. I sat down on the couch, bat in hand, heart racing. But what if he was still here? What if he was just hiding, waiting for the perfect moment? Minutes crawled by like hours until I finally heard a knock at the door. I nearly jumped out of my skin, but it was the police. 2 officers stepped inside, flashlights cutting across the room. They searched every corner of my apartment, upstairs and down, closets, windows, under furniture. Nothing. They told me there were no signs of forced entry, no broken locks, no footprints, no evidence that anyone had been inside at all. Tried to argue, to tell them what I heard, but they just exchanged glances. One of them suggested it could have been a prank caller. The other told me to keep the phone by my bed and call again if anything happened. Then they left. Was I really going crazy? The silence of the apartment closed in on me again. I locked the door behind them, sliding the bolt into place. I tried to convince myself it was over, that I was safe now. But a part of me couldn't shake the feeling that the moment I let my guard down, that's when it would happen. I climbed into bed, the bat resting beside me. The sheets felt cold, like they hadn't been touched in hours. I lay there staring at the ceiling, every creak of the building making my chest tighten. Minutes turned into hours. Slowly, my eyes began to close. Sleep crept in, despite the fear gnawing at me. And then my phone rang. The sound jolted me awake instantly. I sat up, heart slamming against my ribs. The screen glowed in the darkness, lighting up the room in an eerie blue. But something was wrong. There was no number, no name, just a blank screen. It's like the call had come from nowhere. Who was on the other end? I swallowed hard and answered, my voice barely a whisper. Hello. At first, there was nothing, just silence. I thought maybe it was dead air. My eyes darted around the room, searching the shadows for movement. Then I heard it. A whisper, low and clear. 2 words that made my stomach drop. See you soon. The line went dead instantly. My hand shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. I stared at the screen, hoping I had misheard. But I knew I hadn't. Those words replayed in my head over and over, sinking in deeper each time. Were they watching me right now? I threw the blankets off and jumped to my feet, bat in one hand, phone in the other. I checked the window, locked, curtains drawn. I checked the door, still bolted, no way in. And yet, that voice sounded so close, like it hadn't come from the phone at all, but from inside the room with me. The silence returned, thick and suffocating. I stood frozen in the middle of the room, waiting for anything to happen. My pulse was a drumbeat in my ears. The shadows on the walls seemed to shift, stretching and moving when I wasn't looking directly at them. Was he already here, waiting for me to find him? I finally sank back onto the bed, bat across my lap, phone clutched in my hand. I tried to steady my breathing, but each inhale felt like it might be my last. The words echoed in my head, whispering louder each time, see you soon. And that's when I realized something. The whisper on the phone. It hadn't sounded like a stranger. It had sounded exactly like me. Which story scared you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories.